I'm Dawn Hill, host of Heart, Mind, and Purpose, a podcast where we explore what it means to live an aligned and wholehearted life. I am a professional counselor with over 25 years of experience and a deep love for meaningful conversation. I bring you honest reflections, soulful questions, and meaningful tools for managing life. Whether you're seeking clarity, connection, or simply a space to breathe, this podcast is here for you. Tune in weekly and join me on the journey.
Welcome to Heart, Mind, and Purpose, the podcast where we explore how our inner lives shape the way we love, connect, and grow. Hi, I'm Paul Gramercy, producer of today's episode. Today, Dawn explores something we all do every single day, talk to ourselves, and how that quiet inner voice shapes far more than we realize. She connects self-talk to our nervous system, emotional regulation, and ultimately, our capacity for joy. If you've ever wondered why joy feels so difficult to access when you're stressed, anxious, or overwhelmed, this conversation offers practical insight and simple tools you can begin using today. Here's Dawn with today's episode, Why the Voice in Your Head Matters More Than You Think.
Welcome back to Heart, Mind, and Purpose. Today, we are revisiting something that sounds simple on the surface, but is actually deeply transformative: joy. And it's not the kind of joy that shows up when life is going well, but the kind of joy that can coexist with stress, with grief, and with disappointment. In our last conversation about joy, we explored the difference between joy and happiness, how happiness often depends on circumstances, but joy runs deeper. Joy is rooted in connection, meaning, and alignment. So today we're going to take it a step further. Because if joy is rooted in connection, and if joy requires a regulated nervous system, then the question becomes, how do we actually build that? And here's where it gets surprisingly practical. It may begin with something you're already doing, talking to yourself out loud. Now stay with me, because the way you speak to yourself might be one of the most overlooked bridges back to joy and our faith. So what is joy? Joy is a deep, primary emotion that comes from feeling connected, living in alignment with your own values, and having a sense of meaning and purpose. Joy is internal, joy is durable, and joy often coexists with grief, struggle, and difficulty. Joy is the ability to say, life is still good even when this part is hard. And that's why joy can sit beside sorrow. You see this in people who are walking through loss, illness, or hardship, but still carry a grounded, steady sense that life is meaningful. That's joy. So what is happiness then? Happiness is different. Happiness often is spontaneous, momentary, tied to external events, and dependent on circumstances. Like, for instance, eating an ice cream cone on a hot day, laughing with a friend at lunch, getting good news, or watching a beautiful sunset. Happiness happens in the moment. Joy happens across a lifetime. If happiness is the emotion you feel during lunch with a friend, joy is the overall satisfaction you feel because your life contains meaningful relationships. So positive psychology tells us something really interesting. Moments of happiness activate the brain's reward system. The neurochemical called dopamine is released. Joy, however, is tied to parts of the brain responsible for emotional regulation and meaning. So happiness is an outside-in thing, and joy is an inside-out thing. And here is where it gets important. Many of us chase happiness thinking we are chasing joy. There is a myth of constant happiness. We carry a lot of myths about happiness that actually rob us of our happiness and our joy. We tell ourselves things like, something must be wrong with me if I'm not happy all the time. Or, if I had more money, I'd be happy. When life is normal again, I'll be happy. Or, when I find love, then I'll be happy. Or even, if I had a fulfilled life, I'd never feel unhappy. But happiness isn't designed to be constant, and trying to make it constant is exhausting. Sometimes what we're actually looking for isn't happiness. We're mostly looking for contentment, meaning, and that's joy. And research is catching up to this. Recent research shows something surprising. People who face difficulty, process it, and go through it often report higher satisfaction than people who are avoiding discomfort. In other words, suffering, when processed, can actually deepen our capacity for joy. And here's another finding. Leisure time doesn't bring the most joy. Challenging, meaningful engagement does. The things that stretch us often fill us. And here's one big thing. The more people track and chase happiness, the less happy they report feeling. And that's what I call the happiness trap. When we stop asking, am I happy yet? And start asking, what feels meaningful to me right now? Everything shifts. So there are the feelings beneath the feelings. This is where emotions get layered. We don't just feel sadness, we feel shame about sadness. We don't just feel anxiety, we feel frustration that we are anxious. And we start judging our emotional experiences. But emotional maturity isn't feeling one emotion at a time. It's learning to hold complexity. You can feel grief and joy. You can feel exhaustion and joy. And you can feel stress and deep contentment. Parents do this all the time. You might have said or heard this said, I'm tired, I'm overwhelmed, and I wouldn't trade this for anything. That's joy without happiness. Some might be wondering, can you have joy and not be happy? The answer is yes. And this is actually where emotional resilience grows. You might be stressed at work, but still feel joy about your vocation. You might be exhausted as a parent, but still deeply feel joyful in your role as a parent. Joy holds you steady when happiness disappears. Scripture talks about joy very differently than happiness. Nehemiah says, the joy of the Lord is your strength. Paul and Silas sang while in prison, and Job lost everything and still trusted God. Biblical joy is not a reaction to circumstances. It's rooted in our relationship with God. Happiness is a reaction to something great, while joy is the result of someone great. There are 3 myths about joy. First, joy and happiness are the same thing. They are not. 2, if I had X, Y, or Z, then I'd have joy. Joy isn't future-based. And 3, I have no control over joy. Well, we choose where we place our attention, so we do have control over where we focus on our joy. Author Henry Nouwen said, joy does not simply happen to us. We have to choose joy every day, and often that choice looks like gratitude. It is not joy that makes us grateful. It is gratitude that makes us joyful. Let's look at cultivating both joy and happiness. You don't have to choose one. You can cultivate happiness by being present, spending time with people you love, engaging in hobbies, and noticing the moment. Just to mention a few, you could cultivate joy by practicing self-awareness, living in alignment with your values, practicing gratitude, showing vulnerability, showing kindness, practicing meaning, and practicing your relationship with God. Happiness is something you notice. Joy is something you build. So how can self-talk connect joy to the nervous system? So we're going to look at this a little bit deeper. This isn't just a quirky brain trick. This connects directly to everything we've been talking about with trauma, regulation, and joy. When you speak to yourself out loud, you're not just thinking better, you are helping your nervous system settle. And it's really important to pay attention to. A settled nervous system is the foundation for emotional regulation, and emotional regulation is the foundation for joy. We've talked about how trauma, stress, and the state of overwhelm can put us into survival mode, the fight, flight, freeze, or shutdown responses. In those moments, your brain is not interested in logic. It's interested in safety. And here's what's beautiful. When you say that out loud, I'm feeling anxious, I'm overwhelmed, or I need a minute, your brain hears that as orientation. You're telling your nervous system, I see what's happening inside me. I'm paying attention to it. I'm not ignoring myself. And that is deeply regulating. This is why children talk out loud while they play. Have you ever noticed a child building something with blocks? They narrate the whole thing. They say stuff like, okay, this one goes here. Now this one goes over here. Oops, no, not. Well, I'll try that again. Let me put it here. They are not being silly. They are regulating themselves because they are organizing their thoughts and their play. They are helping their brains stay calm when they problem solve. Somewhere along the way, we learned to stop doing that because, well, I guess it looked strange, but our brains never stopped needing it. Self-talk creates space between you and the emotion, and this is where it ties to joy. Joy requires the ability to stay present with what we feel without being overwhelmed by it. But if every emotion sweeps you away, joy doesn't have room to settle. For example, when I would say, Dawn, you're really frustrated right now, you step slightly outside of the emotion. You are no longer drowning in it. You're standing beside it. And that small space is where regulation happens. And where regulation happens, joy has a chance to live. Joy needs a regulated brain. Remember what we learned from the episode Joy Starts Here? Joy is the experience of someone being glad to be with you. But here's the quiet part we don't always say. You also have to learn to be glad with yourself. And that starts with how you talk to yourself. If your inner voice is harsh, critical, shaming, impatient, then your nervous system can never fully settle. And a nervous system that can never settle struggles to experience joy. But when you speak gently, clearly, and honestly to yourself, you become a safe place for your own mind. And that is incredibly healing. And this is emotional maturity in action. Emotional maturity isn't having no emotions. It's being able to say, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm overwhelmed, or I'm disappointed without panicking about the fact that you feel that way. That's regulation. And regulation is what allows joy to coexist with the hard things. It's a simple practice. You could try it this week. When something rises in you, like anxiety, frustration, or sadness, instead of pushing it down or spinning in it, say it out loud. Use your own name. For example, Dawn, you're feeling really tense right now. Or Dawn, this is a hard moment. Or Dawn, you need to slow down. You're doing for yourself what a calm, caring adult does for a child, and your nervous system responds to that. And this builds a bridge back to joy, because joy doesn't come from ignoring emotions. Joy comes from being able to stay present within yourself, kindly, not harshly and judgmentally. And sometimes the first step towards that is simply hearing your own voice say what is true, and realizing you're safe enough to say it. So here's a gentle reframe. If you're not happy all the time, nothing is wrong with you. But if you can begin to build a life of meaning, connection, and gratitude, joy will begin to show up quietly and steadily underneath it all. And that joy will hold you when happiness can't. So as we close today, I want you to consider something gently. What is the tone of your inner voice? Is it harsh? Is it impatient? Is it constantly correcting and criticizing? Or is it steady, attentive, and kind? Because if joy is the experience of someone being glad to be with you, then part of emotional maturity is learning to be glad to be with yourself. And sometimes that starts with something as simple as saying your own name and telling the truth about what you are feeling. Not to fix it, not to rush it, and not to spiritualize it, just to acknowledge it. Regulation creates space, and space makes room for joy. So this week, try it. Say it out loud. Use your name. Offer yourself the steadiness you would offer a child, and notice what shifts. Until next time, may you be kind to your heart, clear in your mind, and grounded in your purpose. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Heart, Mind, and Purpose. If today's conversation resonated with you, try putting Dawn's simple practice into action. The next time you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed, pause and speak to yourself, with steadiness, kindness, and clarity. Small shifts like these can make a remarkable difference over time. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with someone who could use the encouragement. And if you haven't already, we'd be grateful if you'd leave a review. It helps others to discover the podcast. Thanks for listening. We're glad you're here, and we look forward to having you with us next time. As always, you can find resources, listener handouts, and more at dawnmariehill.com/heart. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode as we keep exploring how the heart and the mind and our sense of purpose all work together for a life well lived. If you have questions or comments, please contact Dawn at heartmindandpurpose.podcast@gmail.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.